Hello? Welcome. Stick with me. Let's not waste time and dive through logic. Introduction. Human beings inherit many things before they ever learn to question them. Language, culture, traditions, and perhaps most powerfully of all, beliefs. Beliefs about the universe. Beliefs about morality. Beliefs about God. Yet a quiet philosophical question lingers beneath all inherited doctrines. Do we believe them because they are logically sound? Or because they were handed to us long before we learned how to examine them? For centuries, religious doctrines have shaped the moral compass of civilizations. They have guided marriages, families, laws, and even the deepest private decisions of human life. But the Stoic mind does not fear questions. It welcomes them, because truth, if it is truly truth, should never be threatened by examination. 1. The doctrine of inviting Jesus into marriage. Within many Christian teachings, couples are often advised to invite Jesus into their marriage. The phrase appears in sermons, counseling sessions, and religious literature. The idea suggests that a spiritual presence will guide the union, strengthen commitment, and provide moral direction. But a philosophical mind pauses here. If this advice is presented as practical guidance for marriage, one may reasonably ask, upon what lived marital experience is that guidance based? The biblical narratives describe the teachings, travels, and moral instruction of Jesus, yet they do not present him as someone who lived within the institution of marriage himself. So the question emerges not from mockery, but from philosophical curiosity. When doctrines guide practical aspects of human life, should they be based on symbolic authority or on lived human experience? 2. Symbolic authority versus practical experience. Religion often functions through symbols. Figures such as Jesus represent ideals: compassion, sacrifice, humility, forgiveness. In this sense, bringing Jesus into a marriage may be less about literal marital advice and more about invoking those virtues within the relationship. However, when symbolic language becomes doctrine, it can sometimes blur the line between metaphor and practical instruction. The Stoic thinker therefore separates two ideas: symbolic moral inspiration, practical human guidance. One can admire a moral teacher without assuming that every area of human life was personally experienced by that teacher. Recognizing this distinction does not destroy belief. It simply clarifies its boundaries. 3. The quiet power of inherited dogma. Many doctrines are rarely questioned, not because they are irrational, but because they were received long before critical reasoning matured. A child hears them from parents. Parents heard them from their own parents. Communities reinforce them. Institutions preserve them. And so, beliefs often travel across generations without ever passing through the courtroom of philosophical scrutiny. The Stoic tradition encourages something different. It teaches that wisdom begins the moment a person asks, "Why do I believe this?" Not out of rebellion, but out of intellectual honesty. 4. The human need for certainty religious doctrines endure, partly because they answer deep human needs. Humans seek certainty in an uncertain universe. They seek guidance in complex relationships. They seek meaning in suffering and hope in chaos. Marriage, one of the most delicate human institutions, naturally invites spiritual reassurance. Couples want something greater than themselves to anchor their commitment. Yet the philosophical mind reminds us that meaning can arise from many sources: reason, empathy, shared values, and mutual responsibility. In this sense, The strength of a marriage may depend less on inherited formulas and more on the deliberate character of the people within it. 5. The courage to examine belief. To question doctrine is not necessarily to destroy faith. Sometimes it refines it. Sometimes it reveals that certain teachings are symbolic rather than literal. And sometimes it simply reminds us that humans, not heaven, constructed many of the frameworks through which belief is practiced. The Stoic path is therefore not one of blind rejection or blind acceptance. It is the path of examination. Because beliefs that survive honest scrutiny often become stronger, clearer, and more meaningful than those that were never questioned at all. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow our channel. Until we meet again.